When humans officially joined the Galactic Council, the event was treated like a puzzle by the other species. The council chamber was vast, filled with curved platforms and floating lights that shifted color depending on who was speaking. Every race present had spent centuries perfecting systems of order. Rank was everything. Authority was visible. Power could be measured by clothing, posture, and the number of guards standing nearby. So when the human delegation arrived, the observers began working immediately. The first human to step forward was Captain Tom Hale. He walked with an easy pace, not stiff, not nervous. His uniform was clean but plain. There were no shining symbols, no heavy decorations, no long list of honors stitched into the fabric. Several alien analysts tilted their heads, adjusting their visual lenses. A captain with no visible proof of achievement was strange, but not impossible. They marked him as a mid-level authority and moved on. Behind him came engineer Alex Reed. Alex was talking while walking, smiling as if this were a friendly meeting instead of a historic moment. He leaned close to Tom and said something that made Tom sigh and shake his head. Alex laughed, loud enough for nearby council members to hear. This behavior caused several alien delegates to pause. Engineers were important in most civilizations, but they did not joke with commanders. That suggested either high status or poor discipline. After a brief discussion, the analysts decided humans simply had relaxed customs. Alex was labeled as skilled but socially careless. Then there was the medic. He walked last, a few steps behind the others, carrying a simple case in one hand. His jacket was old, faded at the edges and clearly repaired more than once. His hair was gray, his face calm, almost tired. He did not look around in wonder or fear. He did not speak. When the group stopped, he stopped. When they moved, he followed. His name, according to the data packet, was simply Document. The aliens barely looked at him. In most council species, medical staff ranked low. They were useful but replaceable. Their job was to follow orders, not give them. A medic with worn clothing and no visible symbols of rank was easy to understand. The analysts marked Doc as support personnel, non-command, low priority. Some didn't bother marking him at all. The meeting began. Council Speaker Ilrix addressed the humans with formal words and slow gestures. Tom Hale listened closely, nodding at the right moments. Alex Reed shifted his weight, clearly impatient but trying to stay polite. Doc stood still, eyes half-focused as if listening and not listening at the same time. As the speaker explained council procedures, something odd happened. One of the translation systems briefly glitched. It was minor, just a few seconds of distorted sound. Several alien delegates stiffened, unsure whether to stop the meeting. Before anyone could react, Doc leaned slightly forward and murmured something to Tom. Tom paused, then raised a hand and politely asked for a short break to allow the system to reset. The request was calm. Reasonable. Accepted. The aliens noted that the suggestion had come from Tom, not Document. Doc was ignored again. During the pause, the human group stepped aside. Alex complained quietly about the room temperature. Tom reminded him to stay focused. Doc opened his case and checked a small device, adjusting it with careful fingers. An alien observer noticed that the device was not standard medical equipment. It was old, customized, and very advanced in its own way. The observer hesitated, then dismissed the thought. Humans modified everything. Meant nothing. When the meeting resumed, the council asked about human command structure. Tom explained that humans used ranks but also trusted experience. Leaders were chosen not only by position but by proven ability. This caused confusion. Several delegates asked follow-up questions. Who made final decisions? Who held absolute authority? Tom answered honestly. Sometimes it depended on the situation. This answer caused discomfort across the chamber. As the discussion continued, Alex was asked about engineering cooperation. He spoke clearly, outlining human methods with confidence. At one point he paused, glanced back at Doc and said, "Does that sound right to you?" Doc nodded once. Alex continued. The aliens noticed this exchange, but again it seemed unimportant. Humans often looked to each other for reassurance. That did not change rank. Later, a representative from a silicon-based species asked about biological safety. Human physiology was strange and unpredictable. How did humans manage medical risks during deep space operations? Before Tom could respond, he looked toward Doc. Doc stepped forward slowly. He spoke in simple words. He explained how humans planned for the unknown. How they studied other species with care. How they prepared for mistakes, not just success. He did not boast. He did not exaggerate. He spoke like someone explaining weather patterns to a neighbor. The chamber grew quiet. When he finished, the speaker thanked him and asked for his credentials. Doc smiled faintly and said, "I don't really use titles." Tom added, "He's document." That was all. The aliens exchanged signals. No rank. No title. No formal position. This confirmed their earlier assessment. Doc was useful but unimportant. The meeting ended with polite approval. Humanity was accepted as a junior member of the council. Files were updated. Rankings were set. Threat levels calculated. Doc's file was short. As the humans left the chamber, Tom paused at the doorway. He looked back to make sure everyone was there. Alex was arguing with a council technician about power standards. Doc waited patiently, eyes scanning the room one last time. For a brief moment, one alien observer felt uncertain. There had been something about the way the humans listened to the medic. Something quiet but firm. But uncertainty was uncomfortable and data was comforting. The observer closed the file. Doc was unimportant. Or so they believed. After the first council meeting, the human delegation was given temporary quarters on the central station. The station itself was old, built layer upon layer by many species over hundreds of years. Its halls curved in strange angles, and its lights hummed softly, never fully silent. To the aliens it was a place of order. To humans it was confusing but manageable. Life settled into a routine. Each day humans met with different council groups. They discussed trade, safety rules, shared technology, and travel limits. Alien observers watched closely, recording every movement, every word. They were still trying to understand humans, and humans did not make it easy. Doc was usually quiet. He stood at the edge of rooms, leaning lightly against walls or consoles. He carried his plane case everywhere. When asked questions, he answered politely and briefly. When not asked, he said nothing. To alien eyes, he blended into the background, like furniture that had always been there. But among the humans, things looked different. Commander Sarah Mills was the highest-ranking human present during station operations. She was sharp, focused, and known for making fast decisions. During meetings, she spoke clearly and firmly, laying out plans and expectations. Most of the time, everyone followed her lead without question. Most of the time. During one planning session, Sarah was outlining a shared emergency drill with station security. She spoke confidently, pointing at a projected map. Alex Reed stood nearby, arms crossed. Paul Grant listened carefully, tapping notes into his tablet. Doc sat slightly behind them, quiet as ever. Sarah was halfway through her explanation when Doc raised one hand. Not high. Not dramatic. Just enough to be seen. Sarah stopped speaking mid-sentence. The room froze. Alien observers blinked in surprise. Interrupting a commander was rare. Stopping because of a low-ranked medic was almost unthinkable. Sarah turned toward document. "Yeah?" Doc tilted his head slightly. "That corridor floods faster than the others," he said calmly. "Happened twice during refits. If we route people that way, some species won't clear it in time." Sarah studied the map again. She nodded once. "Good catch." She changed the plan without hesitation. The meeting continued as if nothing unusual had happened. The aliens exchanged silent signals. Perhaps this was an exception. Humans were emotional. They trusted feelings over structure. That must be it. Later that day, Officer Paul Grant was overseeing a cargo inspection. Several alien technicians worked alongside humans, carefully checking sealed containers. Paul was responsible for final approval. He was young, capable, and eager to prove himself. He reviewed the data, then paused. He frowned at one container's readings. Everything looked fine, but something felt off. Paul turned to Doc, who stood nearby watching quietly. "What do you think?" Doc walked over, glanced at the screen, then tapped a few numbers. "The readings are correct," he said. "But the timing isn't. That material cools slower. Someone rushed the scan." Paul nodded immediately. "Run it again." The second scan showed a flaw. The aliens noticed this too. Paul had asked a medic for advice on cargo safety. That made no sense. Medics handled bodies, not freight. Still, the humans did not question it, so the aliens assumed it was cultural oddity. As days passed, similar moments stacked up. During a medical briefing, a senior alien specialist challenged a human health protocol. Tom Hale prepared to respond, but Doc spoke first, calmly explaining the reasoning behind the method. The alien specialist listened, asked follow-up questions, and eventually nodded in agreement. During a navigation discussion, Alex Reed argued passionately for a risky shortcut. Halfway through, he glanced at document. Doc shook his head slightly. Alex sighed and changed his proposal without complaint. Each time Doc spoke only a few words. Each time humans adjusted their actions. The aliens logged these events but misunderstood them. They concluded that humans lacked strict discipline. Decisions seemed fluid. Authority shifted too easily. Anyone could speak and leaders listened. To structured minds this looked chaotic, almost weak. One alien observer even remarked that humans appeared to vote with silence rather than commands. Doc continued to move quietly through halls and rooms. He helped where needed, offering advice, fixing small problems, checking on people after long meetings. He remembered names, alien and human alike. He learned habits, stress signs, and small cultural details. When an alien aide collapsed from exhaustion, Doc was the first to kneel beside them. He treated the aide gently and efficiently, explaining each step in calm words. The aide later told others that the human medic had made them feel safe, even though his species usually feared humans. That report was filed under medical interaction and forgotten. One evening, a minor disagreement broke out between two alien departments over shared space usage. Voices rose. Translations lagged. Tension built. Sarah Mills stepped forward to mediate, but the conversation was going nowhere. Doc cleared his throat softly. The sound was barely audible, but Sarah noticed. She paused, took a breath, and stepped back. Doc spoke slowly, choosing words everyone could understand. He reframed the problem, focusing on shared needs instead of rules. He suggested a temporary solution that allowed time for adjustment. The argument dissolved. Later, an alien observer asked why the commander had stepped aside. Sarah answered honestly. Because he was right. The observer did not know how to record that. By the end of the week, alien reports were full of notes about human behavior. Words like informal, flexible, and undisciplined appeared often. Doc was mentioned occasionally, always as a helpful but low-ranking medic. No one questioned why commanders paused for him. No one asked why officers sought his opinion. They assumed humans simply did not understand proper rank. And so they missed what was right in front of them. Doc walked the station halls that night, checking on equipment, people, and systems just as he always did. He passed under glowing panels and humming lights, unnoticed by most. But everywhere he went, humans felt calmer. And they listened. The failure began quietly. At first, it was just a flicker in the lights along one corridor. A soft dimming, then a return to normal. Most species aboard the station did not even notice. The station was old. Small problems happened all the time. Then the air processors on level 7 slowed. Sensors adjusted automatically, pushing more flow through backup lines. The system logged the change and moved on. Still no alarms. Still no panic. But the station was not built for so many species at once. Within minutes, temperature balances began to drift. Oxygen mixes shifted slightly out of range for 3 different species. Humidity levels dropped where they should not have. Translation nodes lagged as internal power routing changed without warning. That was when the alarms finally sounded. Not one alarm but many. Soft tones at first, then sharper alerts layered on top of each other. Lights across the station changed color. Doors sealed where they should not. Screens filled with warning symbols, each one meaning something different to someone else. The Galactic Council chamber filled with tension almost instantly. Alien leaders gathered, voices rising as data streamed in. Each species saw the problem through its own rules. Each had protocols written long ago, followed without question for generations. Speaker Ilrix called for order, but the room did not calm. One delegate demanded an immediate shutdown of non-essential sections. Another insisted that doing so would harm their people. A third argued that the station's original builders should be contacted first, even if it took days. Systems continued to degrade. On the human side, Commander Sarah Mills stood still, listening. Her jaw tightened as she watched the numbers scroll past. Officer Paul Grant tapped rapidly at his tablet, pulling in system data. Alex Reed muttered under his breath as he tried to trace power flow paths that did not make sense. They all saw the same thing. This was getting worse. Alien voices overlapped, each louder than the last. Protocol demanded debate. Debate demanded agreement. Agreement was nowhere in sight. Then someone said calmly and clearly, "Get document." The words cut through the noise. Sarah turned immediately. Paul looked up. Alex stopped talking mid-sentence. An alien delegate noticed this and paused, confused. A single sentence had shifted the human's attention like a switch. Doc was not in the chamber. He had been 2 levels down, checking on a medical bay that had reported pressure changes. When the message reached him, he did not hurry. He closed a panel, secured his tools, and walked. As he entered the chamber, the arguing continued. Alien leaders barely noticed him. He moved to the human side and stood quietly, listening. He watched the data streams. He watched the people. Sarah leaned slightly toward him. "We're losing balance across multiple life support systems," she said. "No one agrees on the fix." Doc nodded. "They're not wrong," he said softly. "They're just not looking at the same problem." Sarah waited. Doc stepped forward. He did not raise his voice. He did not ask permission. He simply spoke. "The station isn't failing," he said. "It's confused." Several aliens reacted sharply. Confused was not a technical term. It meant nothing in protocol language. Doc continued anyway. "It's trying to keep everyone alive using systems that were never meant to work together this closely. Every time one group adjusts for their needs, it pushes another group out of balance." The chamber grew quieter. Doc pointed at a shared display. "You're treating this like a command failure." "It's not. It's a load problem." Alex's eyes widened. He started typing. One alien engineer objected. "Our systems are independent." "They were," Doc replied calmly, "before you connected them all to save space." Silence followed. Doc turned slightly, addressing the room, "Not just one species. If you keep forcing full balance everywhere, you'll keep chasing problems. You need breathing room. Let the station stabilize in sections." Speaker Ilrix hesitated. "That is not standard procedure." "No," Doc agreed. "But standard procedure was written for stations with one kind of biology." The life support alerts shifted tone. One species levels had dropped into a dangerous range. Paul Grant swallowed. "We don't have much time." Doc nodded. "I know." He outlined a plan in simple steps. Isolate sections temporarily. Adjust flow rates slowly instead of all at once. Prioritize species with narrow tolerance ranges. Communicate changes clearly without delays. He did not give orders. He suggested actions. Sarah repeated them, turning suggestions into commands for the human teams. Alex coordinated with alien engineers, translating Doc's ideas into technical changes. Paul monitored results, calling out improvements as they appeared. Against all expectations, the systems responded. Oxygen levels steadied. Temperatures leveled out. Alerts faded one by one. Alien leaders watched in stunned silence as the crisis eased, not through force or authority, but through cooperation guided by one quiet voice. Within an hour, the station was stable. Exhaustion settled over the chamber. Speaker Ilrix finally spoke. "Who authorized these changes?" Sarah answered without hesitation. "I did." "That plan," the speaker said slowly, "was not yours." "No," Sarah replied. "But it was right." All eyes turned to Doc. He stood where he had always stood. Calm. Quiet. Unimpressed by attention. "What is your rank?" an alien delegate asked. Doc shrugged slightly. "Depends who you ask." That answer made no sense to the council. As repairs continued, reports flowed in. No lives lost. Minimal damage. A crisis resolved faster than expected. Alien analysts updated their records. They struggled to place what they had seen. A low-ranked medic had influenced command decisions across species. That should not happen. But it had. Later, as the chamber emptied, Sarah approached Document. "You okay?" Doc nodded. "Just tired." Alex laughed weakly. "You saved the whole station." Doc gave him a look. "A lot of people did." "But they listened to you," Paul said quietly. Doc did not argue. As he left the chamber, alien eyes followed him with new uncertainty. The file that once labeled him unimportant now felt dangerously incomplete. For the first time, the Galactic Council wondered if they had misunderstood humans entirely. And the quiet medic they had ignored walked back into the halls, carrying his plain case, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. After the crisis passed, the station felt different. The alarms were silent. The lights returned to their steady glow. Air flowed smoothly through the vents, adjusted carefully for every species aboard. People moved slower now, tired but relieved. Conversations were quieter. Laughter appeared in places where tension had lived only hours before. Alien leaders gathered again, this time not to argue, but to understand. They replayed recordings of the event from every angle. Data streams showed adjustments made in real time. Logs recorded commands, responses, and system changes. Everything pointed to the same strange detail. There had been no clear orders from the human medic. Doc had not taken command. He had not overridden anyone. He had not raised his voice or demanded control. He had asked questions. One recording showed him leaning toward an alien engineer. "What happens if this section cools faster than expected?" Another showed him speaking to Alex Reed. If you slow that down, does it give the system time to catch up? To Paul Grant he had asked, what does your data say, not what you expect it to say? Each question led someone else to act. Each answer connected to another person. Like pieces falling into place, people across species began working together without realizing who was guiding them. The system stabilized. Panic faded. That confused the council more than the failure itself. In their cultures, crisis demanded command. Someone had to stand above the rest and take control. Authority had to be visible. Decisions had to come from the top. But Doc had stood among them, not above them. Speaker Ilrix requested a private meeting with the human delegation. Commander Sarah Mills, Captain Tom Hale, Engineer Alex Reed, and Officer Paul Grant arrived together. Doc came last as always. The room was smaller than the council chamber. No grand platforms. No observers. Just a round table and soft lighting. Ilrix studied Doc carefully. You influenced every major decision during the failure, the speaker said. Yet you issued no commands. Doc nodded slightly. I didn't need to. That is not how authority works, Ilrix replied. Sarah spoke before Doc could answer. That's not how it works for you. Ilrix turned to her. Explain. Sarah took a breath. Humans don't always follow rank. We follow trust. The speaker did not understand. Trust must be earned through position. Alex shook his head. No. Position comes after trust. The room fell silent. Ilrix turned back to document. Who are you? Doc hesitated, then answered honestly. I'm a medic. That is not all, Ilrix said. Doc sighed softly. No. It's not. At Ilrix's request, Tom Hale opened a secure file. Alien screens flickered as information appeared. Dates. Missions. Training records. The aliens leaned closer. Doc's name appeared again and again. He had trained emergency response teams during humanity's first deep space voyages. He had advised on long-duration survival protocols before humans understood half the dangers they faced. He had helped design medical systems meant to work when no help was coming. He had been there when the first human station lost pressure and panic nearly killed everyone. He had been there when unfamiliar environments broke bodies in ways no one expected. He had taught people how to stay calm when plans failed. He doesn't command, Sarah said quietly. He prepares people so they don't need to be commanded. Ilrix processed this slowly. Why does he hold no rank? Doc answered before anyone else. Because rank gets in the way. That answer unsettled the speaker. Alien analysts reviewed more data. They found that half the human delegation had trained under Doc at some point. Some directly. Some indirectly. His methods were everywhere. Simple language. Focus on understanding, not obedience. Encourage questions. Prepare for failure, not perfection. Paul Grant spoke up. When Doc asks a question, it's usually the one you didn't think to ask. Alex added, and when he explains something, you suddenly realize you already knew the answer. Ilrix turned to Doc again. Why remain in the background? Doc considered the question. Because people listen better when they don't feel ordered. That made no sense in council doctrine. The aliens felt something unfamiliar. Not fear. Not anger. Uncertainty. Their entire understanding of power felt incomplete. Later that day, alien delegates spoke quietly among themselves. Reports were rewritten. Files reopened. Doc's classification changed from support personnel to something new, something without a clear name. They watched as Doc walked the station halls, checking on people after the crisis. He asked how they felt. He listened. He adjusted small things that no one else noticed. He never mentioned the station failure. Never took credit. One alien aide finally asked him, "Why do they follow you?" Doc smiled gently. "They don't follow me. They trust me." The aide did not know how to record that answer. As days passed, the station returned fully to normal. Trade resumed. Meetings continued. But something had shifted. Alien leaders no longer ignored the quiet medic. They watched him. And slowly they began to understand that human strength did not sit at the top of a chain. It moved through people. And Doc was one of the reasons it did. The council wanted to honor Doc. That decision came quietly at first, passed between alien leaders in careful words and private channels. It made sense to them. Someone important had acted during a crisis. Someone had guided many others. In every known culture that meant recognition. A title. A symbol. A formal place in the hierarchy. They informed the human delegation. Commander Sarah Mills listened without interrupting. When the message ended, she sighed and rubbed her temples. "He's not going to like this," she said. Captain Tom Hale gave a small smile. "He never does." They found Doc in a quiet maintenance corridor, kneeling beside an open panel. He was helping a station worker reroute a sensor that kept giving false readings. His jacket was smudged with grease. His hands moved slowly but surely. Sarah cleared her throat. "Doc." He looked up. "Yeah. They want to give you an honor," she said. "Official recognition from the council." Doc blinked once. "No thank you." Sarah hadn't even explained yet. "They haven't finished the offer," Tom said gently. Doc closed the panel and stood. "Doesn't matter." Alex Reed crossed his arms. "You saved the station. Half the council owes you their comfort levels." Doc shook his head. "A lot of people saved the station." Paul Grant added, "They want to make it formal. The rank. An advisory seat." Doc smiled, but there was something tired in it. "I don't want a seat. I want to work." The humans exchanged looks. None of them were surprised. Still, the aliens insisted. A formal ceremony was arranged before Doc could fully avoid it. The council chamber filled again, this time calm and orderly. Lights glowed softly. Delegates sat in perfect rows. Doc stood at the center, hands folded loosely in front of him. Speaker Ilrich spoke at length about cooperation, wisdom, and guidance. Words flowed in perfect structure. Translations carried the message clearly to every species present. Then the speaker offered Doc a title. Doc waited until the words were done. "No," he said. The chamber froze. Ilrich blinked. "This is an honor." "I know," Doc replied. "But I don't want it." Murmurs rippled through the room. Refusing honor was unheard of. Refusing rank was almost offensive. "Why?" the speaker asked. Doc thought for a moment. "Because titles change how people listen," he said simply. "I don't want that." "That makes no sense," an alien delegate said. Doc nodded. "I get that." Sarah stepped forward. "If you force this on him, you lose what makes him useful." The aliens hesitated. "What makes him useful?" Ilrich asked. "Is not authority?" "No," Sarah said. "It's trust." Doc added quietly, "And trust doesn't come from symbols." The council withdrew to deliberate. While they debated, Doc left the chamber. He walked the station halls like he always did. He checked on a crew member who had trouble sleeping after the crisis. He adjusted a medical schedule to better fit an alien species' rest cycle. He helped a junior engineer understand why a system kept overheating. People thanked him. He waved it off. When the council reconvened, their decision was different. They would not assign Doc a rank. Instead, they updated their records. Human authority, they wrote, was not worn. It was earned through action, calm, and consistency. Influence could exist without command. Leadership could move quietly. Doc's file changed again. This time it was longer. Still, Doc never asked to see it. When the human delegation prepared to leave the station weeks later, alien representatives came to say goodbye. Some bowed. Some placed hands over hearts. Some simply nodded with respect. Doc accepted it all politely, then turned back to his work. As the ship departed, Alex watched Doc secure his equipment. "You know," he said, "they're going to study this for decades." Doc smiled faintly. "Good. Good?" Paul asked. "Maybe they'll stop looking for the loudest voice," Doc said, "and start listening for the right one." The ship moved into open space. Doc sat down, opened his case, and reviewed notes for the next mission. There was always more to prepare for. More people to help. More problems that didn't need shouting to solve. Outside, the stars burned quietly. And inside, the man everyone called Doc went back to work just the way he liked it,